Brooklyn Museum looking at George Bellows' Pennsylvania Station Excavation, circa 1907 to 8.
Bellows is I think, a really fabulous painter and a member of a group of painters who are usually referred to as the ash can.
Why did they get that name?
That's a pretty nasty name, isn't it?
It is.
Well,
garbage can.
Their work was seen to be sooty and gritty and dark, and what they were was a small group of realists that was known as the Eight. And this was a group of American artists that focused in New York for the most part, painted the world around them. And that was a fairly radical idea, but they didn't do it like the American Impressionists, who mimicked the colors and sort of light of Paris.
Mm-hmm.
This was really about New York at its real industrial moment, when New York itself was beginning to flex its muscles, when it was really putting itself on the map. This is the first decade of the 20th century.
So not looking back at Europe to generate a style, but trying to really create an American. So it's funny to me how American art is so much always in dialogue
with Europe. And of course this is also.
I suppose
but just not as clearly in the directness of that reference.
This is just amazing as a document to me of what 7th Avenue was like.
So this is a moment when the technology was steam, and you had these steam-powered diggers excavating this enormous area in order to put Pennsylvania Station here, and you actually sort of see the city rise beyond this new industrial city. But there's something almost Dante-like about this.
Yeah.
It's the pit of hell in a sense. You've got fires burning and smoke.
But images of industrial scenes always evoke those kinds of.
But this is finding
scenes.
Beauty there, right? This is creating a kind of dramatic beauty out of this grit, out of this filth, really. And it's so stark because you have the sooted snow below. You have the sort of the terrible maw that has been carved out of the earth, and then you've got this sort of garish sky.
Yeah.
What I find really interesting in contrast. Pennsylvania Station is this very important railway and station. And the president of that station was the brother of Mary Cassatt. And in fact, Mary Cassatt's fortune is largely based on this. And so here we have a representation of this grit that is this new American power. And yet the man for whom this is being built, sister, is in Paris doing really important things, or had been in the past decades. But nevertheless, with a kind of delicacy and a kind of refinement that is completely absent in the Bellows.
But it kind of does remind me of the ways in which money and the moneyed industrialists of the early 20th century were buying art investing in art.
That's true. Although, what's interesting is Bellows didn't really find that much favor among the collectors.
Well, it doesn't surprise me with pictures that look like this.
Yeah, and it was really Gertrude Vanderbilt Whitney who would eventually create her museum, who was the main patron for these artists. She was buying them up. She thought that there should be a market, and she was an important promoter of their work.
Patrons can be very important.